And we're back. Welcome back to the Auto Authorities Podcast. I am Jay. This is Gerald coming to you live. Today, we're talking about the quality issues hurting Ford. Boy, do we have a lot to share today. But before we get going, I want to thank our sponsors, iAutoAgent.com. That's I like integrity, AutoAgent.com. When you want to sell your car, they act as real estate agents for people's cars. And you don't want to go to the dealer, you don't want to do it on your own, they'll do it for you. You don't want to go to the dealership to buy your car, they'll do it for you. You are a fleet owner that has a fleet of vehicles and you don't want to manage your fleet, they'll do it for you. They'll take care of the buying of the fleet vehicles, maintaining them at your place of business or the driver's home, and selling them for maximum profit, keeping your bottom line as high as possible. And if you have any questions on extended warranties and you're not sure if you qualify for one, contact iAutoAgent.com or go to the AutoAuthorities.com, give us your VIN and miles, and we'll give you a quote. And I guarantee you it'll be about 50 to 60 cents on the dollar compared to the dealer. And also, we are on multiple different channels. You can go on our Facebook group page at 12 p.m. Central Time on Tuesday and LinkedIn and watch us live. Go to the Auto Authorities right now on the YouTube page and subscribe and hit the notifications button. And we are also on TV, and I will let Gerald tell you about that and Wrestling Spotlight.
Thanks. Yeah, we're on Shop Plus TV. You can find it on multiple streaming platforms, fast channel platforms. Our home, though, is True TV Plus. You can get that app on Apple TV, on Roku, on Amazon, and on Android Play now. So there are lots of ways to watch it. And while you're on True TV Plus, in addition to watching our show on Shop Plus TV, you can see Wrestling Spotlight. That's the channel that I program. We have independent wrestling from around the country, including one of our feature promotions, Glory Pro, right from St. Louis. They do their shows out of the South Broadway Athletic Club in the shadow of the Budweiser Brewing headquarters right there in downtown St. Louis. We have them on there. We got Central States from Kansas City and Bruce City from Milwaukee. So lots of great independent wrestling and interviews and breakdowns of shows. We've been able to cover WrestleMania live and AEW Dynasty live right from St. Louis here in the last month.
Very cool.
So great stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll tell you, speaking about great stuff, Ford is not having great stuff that they're producing.
Yeah, well, it's a repeated problem with Ford. If you look back, when they launched the Focus, the last generation of the Focus, there was something like 18 recalls that came out because it had a dual clutch manual transmission and everybody tried it. Nobody was able to get it to work. Hyundai tried it. They failed. Toyota tried it. Chrysler tried it. Ford gave it the best go and they could never make it work. But then there were other problems with the Focus. The best thing was the last two recalls before they just did a stop sale and kind of reworked the car before they put it out. Second to last one was the heating and cooling system would fail. Yeah, okay, that's not good. But the good thing is, if your heating and cooling system failed in the winter, the last recall was a spontaneous engine fire. So the engine fire would keep you warm until the tow truck got there. So it's nothing new to have quality problems.
The old adage, found on road dead or fix or repair daily. It's hurting them because they produced so many vehicles. They are just flooding them out, especially F-150s. I mean, they're all just, they're sitting out there. And the problem is that it's kind of, what I use the example, Gerald, it's like a phone. And you have these over-the-air updates, and I just had one on my phone, and truly, it ruined my phone. And not only once, but twice, because I tried to stop the update on the second phone that they gave me, and it just didn't do it. And that's what's happening with Ford. It's the same thing. These are computers on wheels. They're flooding these things out there, and they're not testing them first. So when you don't do that, then you have all these unhappy people. So now they've got to do something about it.
Yeah, they're having they're having lots of issues. And what's also happening is they're delaying the release of the cars. You saw they delayed the release of the Lightning. The
Mm.
24 model year Lightning is just now starting to trickle out because they had so many issues with the 23. If you take a look, it actually cost Ford a 24% drop in profit, largely from the 12 recalls they had to put out on the new body style F-150. And, it's just rolling recalls, and it's not just the cost of not having the car ready to sale, it's the cost you add by having to make the dealerships do these recalls, which a lot of times it's not quite as bad as it used to be because, Jay, a lot of times it is literally just bringing the car in, and the phrase they use at the dealerships is flashing it. You hook it up to the code reader from the manufacturer, give it a programming update, and there you go. Because a
Yeah.
lot of them are transmission issues where the gear ratios are wrong. And it's not like the old days where you had to rip the transmission apart and change gears. It's literally a computer programming patch to say, okay, hey, at this RPM, you should be in this gear or at this ratio because they're all CVTs now. So it's a bunch of little stuff, but it's not just Ford, it's every manufacturer. We're really kind of getting back to the days where customers are going to be saying, hey, well, man, it's the first model year of the car. I don't think I want it. But that
Hmm.
used to be the line, right? I mean, when we were at dealerships 20 years ago working in sales, you'd hear that all the time. Hey, boy, how long has this engine been out? Oh, it's in its fifth year. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because back then, people wouldn't buy the first year because they thought a rod was going to blow in the engine. Well, it's not that now, but there's some computer problem. There were some cases where the Chevy Blazer EV was bricking on the highway. And that's the phrase, like you said, for your phone. You tried to load the update and the phone became a brick.
Yep.
Well, that's happening. That was happening to the Chevy Blazer EV.
Yep.
So you're driving your SUV down the highway. It gets an over-the-air update to the infotainment system, and then just boom, dead stop.
Yep. And that's scary, man. I mean,
Yeah,
I'll tell you, Gerald, I still have philosophy. I don't buy the first year. I don't because you become a laboratory rat. You still do. And I remember back in the day when the C5 Corvette came out, everybody was so excited about it. And then they found out that, it needed a new gas tank because the gas tank was I'm like, holy crap, like really
sure.
this someone just bought a Corvette. It's like, oh yeah, but you're gonna have to bring it in because it's gonna require a new gas tank because they have a problem with things catching on fire. And it's like, oh, okay, well, that's normal. Yeah, I still don't like first years. Like you said, it's better, but pretty much every vehicle out there, it seems like it has a recall now. It
Yeah.
does. They don't people don't want to get I shouldn't say people. The manufacturers don't want to get sued. So the moment that something bad happens to like one vehicle, it's like, "Oh my gosh, this one caught on fire. Recall them all."
That is true. Or even just they notice the possibility of it happening. Right now, nationally, the Toyota Prius is on a stop sale for a
Really?
problem.
I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
Prius is on a national stop sale for a problem that hasn't even happened.
So tell
The
us about it
problem
because I
is,
didn't know about that.
yeah, the problem is that there's something causing the rear doors to come unlocked as driving. And because of that, even though it hasn't happened yet, because of that, they're on stop sale until they can figure out what the fix is to make sure the rear doors stay locked. So it can be little things, and it's every brand.
Yep.
Honda, when they brought out not this current generation of Civic, but the previous generation of Civic, they had to do a consumer advisory campaign, a quality campaign, and I believe it became a recall because the rear tires were angled just a little bit too much, and it was causing the rear tires to burn up. You were eating up the tread on the inside of the rear tires because they were angled just a bit too much, and people were frying tires in 10,000 miles.
Hmm.
So every brand is affected by it. And I think what you're seeing now, every brand, when they bring out a new model, they're kind of halting, they're really slow, and the amount of inventory you get at the dealerships for those new cars is dramatically less than you would think, because just like you said, the companies don't want to have all these massive recalls. So they're quality holding it, they're stop selling it, they're giving delays. And at the end, it's the consumer that's taking the hit because inventory is so tight right now. We haven't built up any backstock from COVID. Well, by nature, if you're bringing out a new model and it's a whole new body style, you cut production short on the previous year.
Right.
Instead of making in this case, say the 24, instead of gunning them out to September, you stop making them in May. So
Right.
it's a short year, and then you're getting ready for the new model to come out. Well, if the new model gets delayed, that company just doesn't have the car. And if it's
Yeah.
something like an Escape or an Equinox or a Camry, you're going to notice it because those are volume cars and they just won't be there.
Yeah, that's pretty much all the stuff people can afford now. I mean, even people can't afford those because they're still expensive, but it's less money than some of these other ones. So, what do you think in your mind? What does Ford have to do? They're going to slow down. They're going to have to just like, hey, and it's not just Ford. All of them, like they
It's
got to
everybody,
slow
yeah.
down. But it's going to affect the supply because they're just not going to make them as fast, which I think is good. I rather have quality over quantity, because at the end of the day, it's kind of like the old the dealerships are like, get it to pass safety inspection and just get it out of here. Well, when
Yep.
you do that, well, then you get the car back because you didn't take the time to look it over properly, and
Yeah.
and that,
Well,
that's
and
exactly what's happening on the new.
Ford is pumping the brakes, and I mean Toyota pumped the brakes on the Prius because they were trying to avoid those recalls. Ford held back. This is according to Ford CEO Jim Farley. 60,000 new F-150s were held back for up to 6 weeks to get quality fixes done. And it was mostly programming. So they had somebody go out to the holding lots. And if you're here in Kansas City, you can see the holding lots. They make a lot of the F-150s right here at the Clay Como factory. It's the biggest Ford factory in the country, one of the biggest ones in the world. You go by some warehouses, you go by some old shopping malls, there's F-150s parked everywhere.
Hmm.
They were sending technicians out flashing those cars. They did 60,000 cars. Jim Farley said it avoided 12 recalls. So it's some sort of programming issue. And you change one thing, it makes a problem somewhere else. It's just like trying to fix Microsoft, when Microsoft Windows was constantly having problems, right? This one crash created another crash because you're doing computer programming. But doing that delay, they estimate cost Ford $3 billion in
Yep.
profits this quarter. 3 billion. So I'm sure they're going to want to figure out a way to streamline that because you don't want to keep leaving the money on the table. Good news is they can get it back because you're still going to sell them. So it's not like it's really gone. It's just delayed.
Yeah.
But you're seeing that everywhere. And I think as you add more tech, as you add more touch screens, as you add more safety features, every time you add a new feature, it could conflict with something else. So,
It's just I keep going back to the same analogy. It's like if you add an app to your phone and that app is not been vetted properly, it could affect the rest of your phone. So you got to be. I used to download all these apps over and over, like, oh, this would be a fun one to use.
sure.
Like, I'm very, very careful on what I download as far as apps now. It's the same thing, like you just said. Like one thing could just ruin the entire car.
Yeah, and it's going to be a constant battle. I mean, Bill Gates, when they were having trouble with Windows, somebody asked him, "Hey, when is Windows going to be 100% fixed?" And
Never.
Bill Gates' answer was, "Well, when is the ocean going to be burnt?"
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's a phrase you hear in technology a lot. Okay, it's burning the ocean. That means it's impossible. You're never going to do it because
Never.
there's always something that's conflicting with something else. So I mean, unfortunately, it's just going to be a matter of time. And as these technologies get more ingrained, then you'll see less issues. And a bigger question for the auto manufacturers, and something that you're seeing now at a lot of used car dealerships that are scuffling,
Mhm.
and I'm noticing personally, auction
Mhm.
results for older cars are going up. Like the previous generation Ford Escape, the squared off one that was made in Clay Como, their values are going up, which is weird because I mean, you're talking 2010 and 2011s. 2010, 2011s that have a book value of like $3,000, they're selling at auction for 6 and 7.
Wow.
And the reason why, those cars didn't have all the new fuel saving technologies, and the mechanics that work at the used car dealerships and the buy here, pay here dealerships, they can work on them. The new
That
ones with cylinder deactivation and active fuel management, what's being found out is those systems, which are really, really expensive, active cylinder management, displacement, where it cuts the car from 6 to 4 to 2, that system in GM SUVs and trucks cost $8,000. And it seems to have a lifespan of, not surprisingly, about 13 years. So that first generation, they're done.
wow.
The car
Well,
could be just fine, but you may be sitting on an $8,000 ticking time bomb. So that's the that's the other side of the equation. Okay, we got these new issues, but now maybe some of the old unintended issues are going to be coming up. Because I've been flat told by multiple independent mechanics, we don't want to work on 2011, 2012, 2013 GM SUVs because you can't fix that cylinder management system, and it
yeah.
just goes. And then you're seeing hybrids, that previous generation of hybrids from 2011, 2012, 2013, the transfer modules that coordinate the gas to electric split. Well, those modules are failing. And guess how much the module cost? $8,000 to $10,000.
Holy cow.
So it's always going to be a struggle to get a balance and try to make things last as long as they can.
Well, that's why we always preach extended warranty, extended
Yeah.
warranty, extended warranty. Like you had said, that's $3,500 is the average claim now or something
Average
made.
internal repair on a car is $3,500. Yeah.
It's unbelievable, man. Like that's why. So I said in the beginning of the episode, if you have any questions, interested in extended warranty, contact us at theautoauthorities.com. Give us your VIN and miles, and we'll give you a quote. Because here I just got one on my wife's BMW because I'd never ever want to own a BMW without a warranty. I will
Oh,
tell you
yeah.
that. That is a scary, scary thing right there. One thing pays for itself in a second.
Hmm.
But yeah, so any other people out there that have any questions as far as if you got a Ford, be curious to hear what your experience is. If you could leave your comments below, like have you had good experience with Ford, or you having a good, bad, doesn't matter. Tell us. Anything else you want to add, Gerald?
Yeah. I'd like to know if anybody's used the service that the Ford dealerships are offering, which I thought was a really good idea by Ford to promote the dealerships to do this. They all were required or strongly suggested to get some transit vans and make them mobile service stations where the dealership goes out and does those flash programming recalls at the customer's work site or their house. I've used it personally. I've wondered if anyone else has used it, because it actually is a
Hmm.
great idea, and it's a good way to get a little goodwill, because the more the cars become computerized, the more programming updates are going to need to happen. So I got to give Ford credit for being proactive and coming up with a good idea of how to kind of get ahead of the game a bit.
That's interesting you say that, Gerald, because we just partnered with a couple Ford dealerships on our fleet side because they
Uh-huh.
have a fleet maintenance. But here's the thing, and this is what they told me. is Ford rolled this thing out, and they are not as prepared for this as that they should be. So Ford rolled it out before they even had the dealers set up on this. But it's very, very interesting because that we partner with a couple companies, Ford companies, dealerships.
Sure.
Well, thanks everybody for joining us today, and please subscribe to the Auto Authorities podcast. Just click the subscribe button, leave your comments below, and we will see you next week. Peace.